Where do great business ideas often come from? Our guest today is David Sauers. He is the founder and CEO of Royal Restrooms. And if you've ever been to a festival or an event and they had a porta potty, you know how important cleanliness and convenience is. And Royal Restrooms has taken this to a whole new level by supplying the most elegant and luxurious portable restrooms that you'll ever see. And when I heard about this, actually, it was funny because a few years ago, I was at an event with another guest that's been on the show, Luke Michelson, and they had the most beautiful restroom, porta potty, whatever, like portable restroom. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And you don't appreciate it until all of a sudden you see the difference. And so he is an award-winning business founder, franchisor, consultant now, and still has time to serve on boards and volunteer in the community. And so I'm really excited about our conversation we're going to have today, talking about his idea, how he came up with it, and what he's learned from building it into a successful business and a national franchise. David, welcome to the Leaders Transformation. We're glad you're here today.
Hi, thanks, Nicole. I really appreciate it. And what a very warm and quite onerous introduction there.
Yeah, my pleasure. You know what? Like I said, when Titan Media Works, by the way, shout out to them for the introduction. Thank you. When they reached out and like I have this memory, right, of being at this event and they said, "Oh, Royal Restrooms, David Sauers, and this is what they're doing." And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely. We need to talk about that because that's awesome." It was pretty funny actually at the event because I came out and I said to a few people, I said, "Have you been to the bathroom? Like
Right?
seriously, this is awesome." And they're looking at me kind of funny. No, this is great because the traditional ones are just gnarly. And so, and when we go to the beach here in San Diego, they're not that great either, even this, like the actual physical restrooms. And so it's the little things in life that you appreciate. So I'm just going to
It
say
is. And that's what we're trying to do. It's kind of like we don't necessarily want to be talked about, but when we are, we want to provide that exceptional experience of kind of like, wow, I really wasn't expecting that. And you remember it. And, here you are years later, still remembering it. And hopefully it was one of mine. We have an office out there in San Diego. So who knows? It could have been.
yeah.
But if not, kudos to the business owner that did it, because that's exact effect that we want from all of our clients.
Yeah. Well, you're the one who came up with the idea. So maybe tell us about how you came up with it. And because you were like a banker, and I also saw in your bio professional golfer and all that. So tell us a little bit about the journey.
Yes, well, that it all kind of leads into the business. It's all a big story because everything is really connected. When I played golf, my uncle is Gene Sauers. He was on the professional tour. I didn't ever make it to the big tour. I played on a lot of really small mini tours and stuff like that, right out of college. But we had these large, I think it was Kohler restrooms or something, and they were like 53-foot restroom trailers on the semis, and they were real bathrooms just on a trailer, and they would pull them up to these golf tournaments and stuff. And that was where I'd first seen the really truly nice portable restrooms, but nobody had done anything with it on a smaller scale. And being a commercial lender after that, and a banker, that always wanted to do more, kind of leave my mark. I was always intrigued by all of these different business people following their dreams, and here I am watching them, and I'm a part of it. And it's like, wow, I think everybody has a little bit of that in them. So when I had the opportunity, it was like, okay, let's do this. Let's make this happen. But my story really, from how it began, was both of my little girls, Stella and Cece. She was potty training, and we were at a Shakespeare in the Park festival in Savannah, Georgia. And we went to a porta potty, and as a kid training, to go to the bathroom to learn how to do this, it was a horrible, very uncomfortable, very difficult to explain situation. I kind of walked in, I have CC on my hip, and I turn around trying to figure out, okay, there's no lights. What am I going to do? I turn around and Stella's got her hands on the toilet, and it's like, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Freaking out. And I end up passing CC off to the person behind me, and I've got like one foot open in the door so I can see, but also keeping an eye on her. And I'm holding Stella over the toilet, and she just pees all over me. And thankfully, that's the only golden shower that I got. But it was just a terrible experience. As a guy, it's not so difficult, but from a female perspective, and from a parent perspective, and from a child's perspective, wow, what a horrifying situation. And it's not that porta potties aren't needed. They're always going to be needed and wanted, but why couldn't we come up with, why was there not anything better out there? Why was there not a better solution? And I think it's, you touched on it. Nobody wants to talk about porta potties. Nobody wants to think about it. So what we had was, that was what was accepted. Nobody really cared about doing anything about it. It was just accepted. We don't like it, but it's a necessary evil, I guess. But I went home after that and literally drew out a half bath trailer that we could take to festivals and events, but on a very small scale. And it really wasn't me that, moved forward with this all by myself. I kind of sat back for a long while before we actually did anything. And it was my business partner, Robert Glisson, who was really the catalyst that moved this forward. And, the two of us together molded everything and created Royal Restrooms together. If it wasn't for him, I would have probably never made that move or had the nerve to really do something else about it, because so many people and entrepreneurs are just scared. They're worried about that security. They're worried about losing what they've worked so hard to achieve. And being an entrepreneur really puts everything out there. And also, when you become an entrepreneur, it's, people don't realize that it's 24/7. It is holidays, it is weekends, it is long nights, and it is stressful on the family just as it is rewarding.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there's so much in that, from a lesson standpoint, because a lot of times we are somewhere and we see something that is not optimal, or in that case, like, even most people hate going to, they're like, oh man, can you hold it? Like, and so it's this thing that we accept. And yet that's where a lot of times the brilliant ideas come from. But sometimes it's not, we may have the idea, but then there's someone else who comes alongside us and challenges us to actually do something with that idea. I remember being a kid, maybe like 8, 9 years old, going down to, I'm from Canada, so we were going down to the States. And as we were driving into the southern states from Toronto, we would stop at all these, like, Bob Evans and Cracker Barrels and all of that. And they always had, I didn't drink soda, and the water was terrible because it's tap water. And so they had either orange juice or apple juice, neither of which I was a fan of. And so it was like, oh man, every once in a while you'd get grape juice, and it was like, oh, that's so good, right? And I remember thinking as a kid, there's got to be more flavors. With all the fruits out there, there's got, vegetables, there's got to be more flavors. Mm-hmm. And it's just a thought, right? Now you look back and you see the beverage industry and you're like, yeah, there's way more flavors than we can even imagine, all the combinations and how big that industry was. But I was a kid. I wasn't thinking about building a business out of it or anything like that. Right. I just thought somebody should do something about that. And if somebody did, right? And so there is that where it's like, man, somebody should do something. Well, why not us, and why not now? And then you talk about having somebody who challenged you as a partner to say, hey, let's do this. And I think that's important. Is trying to do something on your own in a vacuum by yourself is hard. But when you have
Mhm.
somebody alongside you who says, hey, let's do this together, lock arms, let's do this, and or a family that's supportive, maybe talk a little bit about, like you said, it takes a toll on the family. Like, how did you manage through that? We've got a lot of entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs that watch this show who are at that point, right? Where maybe they have an idea, or they're trying to come up with an idea because they know they want to do their own thing, or maybe they got pushed out of their, job, and they're at a point where they have to make something work, and the job market isn't really offering them opportunity. And so they're like, man, I want to do something, but if I'm going to do it, then I want it to be meaningful, right? So they're in that place, and it's like, what would
Yeah,
you tell them in terms of how to navigate that?
there are definitely a lot of things that I wish that I could hit the reset button and redo. Um, I am divorced. My first wife that I did the business with, Charlotte, when we started, um, we were a great partnership. We were a great team. But somewhere along the line, business was all that we talked about. That seemed to be the basis of our entire conversation. And there was no escape, and a lot of people, when they come home, they don't want to necessarily be working. They won't want to. And I made that mistake. I never turned off being in the business. And my life suffered for that. And, she took more of the role with the kids, with the girls. And it turned into, you know what? On Saturdays, I'm going to take the girls. We're going to go to the Pancake House. We're going to go to Belk or Macy's. We're going to put some, do the makeup. We're going to go get your nails done. We're going to go play putt-putt. We're going to have daddy day, and mama's going to have a break. And, that sounds great and all, but you need that family time. You need the break time, because all of a sudden now I'm doing things with the girls, and I'm not doing things with her. We're not doing things as a family. Sure, we did the family events. We went to the birthday parties. We went out and stuff like that. But we slowly lost that family and that connection. And, um, Charlotte and I are still good friends. We co-parented very well with the girls, but we lost that communication between each other. It was, she didn't want to talk to me because all I was talking about was business, and I didn't want to hear what so-and-so was doing at the pool, you know? And we lost track of finding ourselves, because at the time the business was in survival mode, and the unknown is what hurts, I believe, so many entrepreneurs, which is why there is a high success rate, or a high rate of divorce among entrepreneurs, because it is stressful. And comes from money, and even a little notoriety or success. Those success creates stress, money creates stress, problems create stress, and most of the time, entrepreneurs, we don't celebrate our little milestones, and we don't pat ourselves on the back and take a moment to see what we've accomplished and done. And now at 20 years into the business and where we are, we didn't do it by ourselves. We didn't do it by this one day or this one month. We did it because we had a team of people. We had employees that believed in us and backed us, and we had family members that believed in us and backed us, and we had clients that depended on us. And so it was all a very big collective effort for how we've been able to sustain and be successful for all these years.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and thank you for your vulnerability and transparency and actually sharing that, because most people they don't want to talk about those struggles, right? The reality of what is, and that's what causes others to not be aware of it and fall into the same trap,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And so you even just, sharing your experience, I think that's creates awareness. For It's a good reminder for all of us to say, hey, are you able to shut off? Or do you have a conversation? My husband and I actually just had this conversation recently where he doesn't want to know about all the things that are happening. Like he wants, I mean, that's fine, but he wants to hear and he wants to talk about us. He wants to talk about
Right.
the things that we're doing, and so because he's got his things and he loves cars and he's always learning stuff online and trading and all that. And I'm over here working on the stuff that I do and the coaching and everything. And we've got to be able to set those things aside, even though we are integrated they are integrated in our life, right? But it's to separate those out and have that time. And even kids, like even people that are working jobs, one's working
Mm-hmm.
one job, one's working the other job, and all they're doing is surviving, managing the kids, parenting the kids. But if they don't take time, I've heard, many people have said that, over the years, you focus on your kids and then your kids grow up and they move out and you look at each other and you're like, who are you? Like I
Yeah.
don't have any connection with you. And so, it's a reminder. It makes me think of values, right? It's making sure that you know what your values are and prioritize, the highest values and not let things get in the way, because it's so easy to do, in life in general, and especially in the entrepreneurial space, which doesn't finish at 5 o'clock.
Right. And you're exactly right. And it's those things that, um, you know, things happen 3 days in a row, like you're all of a sudden working till 8 o'clock. It's Monday, kids are in bed. You come home Tuesday, all of a sudden it's 8 o'clock again. Wednesday, it's 8:30. And all of a sudden that becomes a habit and you've got to check yourself and you've got to reset because um, those small things turn into longer term habits and it disrupts a lot of things. We try to make it a point that, every morning is good morning. There's a hug. There's a, how was your day? There is a kiss goodnight. There is an, I love you. There's some kind of, hey, we're not doing this separate. We're doing this together, even though one of us has done a little more today than the other. But we're both aware of each other and what we're sacrificing and doing. And I can tell you this, it's it's wonderful to be able to go places with my family and, not feel like they're distant relatives, or they're like a long lost friend. You go there, you're comfortable, you um it's a nice feeling. You want to go places with them. And the more times that you find that, the more enjoyable life is. And, you've worked so hard through your business to, the end goal is to be, you know, happy, to find that happy spot. And it doesn't matter how much money you have in the world. It doesn't do anything if you don't have anyone to really share it with or experience things with.
Yeah. So you're remarried.
I am.
And so that's when you talk about your family, that you are remarried now happily and have been married for a number of years and got a
Yes.
bunch of kids and all
Yes,
that
we
and
do.
that. So that is awesome. Now let's talk about that concept of family. And I know that you have also incorporated that into your franchise and how you built your franchise and how you support your franchisees. How did you take that concept into the business world?
So, that's one of the things. Robert is just like me. He's very family oriented. He is still married to Julianne and his family. So, they're one of the lucky ones. They weathered the storm and They've got a great relationship and great marriage, and we're, you know, I am envious of him at that, and I'm happy that, I'm where I am today as well. But when Robert and I started this business, we did not want it to be so corporately structured. Neither of us had ever come from or worked at big corporations. We had always been for small firms, small banks, not necessarily that they were family owned, but they were small businesses. Um, so we wanted to make sure that we kept more of a family connection and we weren't ruled by so many, hard rules, that we could bend them. We could go case by case because Seattle is different from Savannah, Georgia, and Miami is different from Charlotte, North Carolina, and Austin, Texas is different from San Diego. So, you know, we basically wanted to provide a product that, is more from a service standpoint. We're providing the best possible service. We have, we don't necessarily feel like we need to state that we have clean toilets. That is our business. I hope that people would assume that we're going to bring them a very clean product. But ours was more focused on, from a service industry standpoint, providing that excellent customer service and professionalism in an industry that was not really ever considered, it was just considered a sanitation industry, not a service industry. But one of the other things that Robert and I wanted to make sure is that each and every office owner was vested in the community. We wanted to make sure that each office contributed at least $25,000 in in-kind donations to area nonprofits. We wanted office owners that are invested in the community, that are part of that community, that wanted to make a difference. And a lot of people, they do get excited about volunteering, but a lot of times it's one thing that they really love to do. And our business allows us to be a part of many different organizations, from Habitat to Humanity to the March of Dimes to a buddy walk for autism to Light the Night. There's just so many different things that we've been a part of and that we've got to experience and hear people's stories. And it's really an amazing feeling to be able to give back and learn so much. Even if we're just providing a restroom, we're still part of that event and we're helping them succeed in their event.
Yeah. Well, and I love the humanity in it, because so often in the workplace, business, big business, small business, medium size, it's becomes like the goal is the function of the business, right? It's like the operational side of it as opposed to the human side of it. But all success comes through people, and fulfillment comes and pleasure comes through connections with people. And so I always look at business, or, in any form, even nonprofits and all, like, organizations are just simply vehicles for us to create value in the marketplace, to create value for others, to connect with others, to create an environment where people can thrive and prosper together. And I hear that in what you're saying. And I love what you're saying about, because franchises are designed as you're buying a system. You're
Right.
buying a proven system, hopefully, and I've owned franchises and also worked in the back end of franchises and had clients that were franchisors. And you see some of them, they don't have their systems in place, and that can be frustrating. But then there's others that have their systems so rigid in place that it doesn't allow for personality in that.
Right.
So because there's a balance in terms of recruiting franchisees, how do you find the right people that will support the business, that will uphold the brand, right, and apply the systems and yet at the same time also be able to bring in their personality and be who they're created to be too.
Well, that is you kind of answered yourself right there. That is who we're looking for. We want somebody who is going to bring their own personality to the business. We want somebody who's going to make this their own and kind of create their own little legacy. We don't want absentee owners. We don't want somebody that is so structured in business. Nobody in our business has been in the porta potty industry before, and most all of them had never even been an entrepreneur before or own their own business. Many times, a lot of these people, they don't even know that they're maybe an entrepreneur. They just want to do something a little bit different, and they want to have a little bit of ownership. And so we don't have a huge marketing team or even a budget to try to pitch our product and sell our company. We are probably one of those companies that need to be a lot more rigid from a structure standpoint, because we're putting our faith in the people that buy into our business, that they're going to make the right decision, and they're going to build the brand, and they're going to wear the brand on their sleeve, and they are going to do right because they've invested their money and they've invested hard work, and they want to be more than who they are today. And so most of all of our office owners that we do have, they're the ones that are beating down our door to become a franchise. We're not really advertising it anywhere, or have a true active sales force. And it's funny. Probably 95% of our franchise requests come from territories that we're already in, because they've seen our product, they like what they see, and it's like, but we're already there. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to pass this along to the office owner, that you thought so much of what they did that you wanted to be in business with them. And it's really where we've been fortunate and blessed with all of our owners. Andy Christian, he's coming up on 19 years. I mean, it's our 20th year, and he's one of the ones that helped, propel us forward. Robert and I never meant to become a franchise or even expand this business. It just, everything took its own road and path, and we just hopped on and went with it.
It's interesting because as you're saying that, I can almost hear people going, what? You don't have what if you had a marketing strategy? What if you did this? What if you did that?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that we were going to talk about this, but this is interesting because one of the things that I'm still learning, and it's a process, because as a type A person, I'm somebody that likes to strive and push forward and is very driven. And yet over the last number of years, it's like God has been teaching me how to rest
Right.
versus strive. So you're moving, you're driven, you're focused, I'm actually making more things happen by doing less. It's the slow down to speed up kind of
Right.
approach. Because when we strive and we push, we go into burnout. It's that grinding it out. You got to grind it out. And look, like you said, entrepreneurship is a commitment. There's a lot to it when you're owning a business, and it's the 24/7, and yet you do need to take time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that because I grew up, my parents had businesses, franchises, as well as their own independent businesses, and garage businesses and gas stations and stuff. And it's a 7 days a week deal, right? Like
Yeah.
Sunday night, somebody's car breaks down and they're calling my dad going, hey, my car broke down. And it's like, he just got home, from working, and it's Sunday night, and he's going out to help somebody, that was years ago. Right. But, it's this all in, right? Type of a
Mhm.
mindset. And yet, what I have been learning, like I said, over these last number of years, is how to operate from that place of restfulness and that place of like resting mentally, of just allowing, like there's a grace to it, and where you're doing good work and it's coming to you because of the good work, the service that you're providing. So rather than trying to grow so fast, reminds me actually of a franchisor who, in particular, there's a couple of franchisors that come to mind, but one in particular, he said, like, I want to grow my franchise, and and I said, so how are your current franchisees doing? And he was like, well, some are good and some are not so good and so forth, but I don't really make my money off royalties. I make my money off by selling franchises. And I
Mhm.
said, that is your problem. That is your problem, because your franchisees, when we looked at his franchisees, were not doing well. Some of them were not even a good fit because he sold it to them because they had the money. And so then he's going out and having, it's almost like a sieve, right? He's got to go sell, more franchises and make the money off that to feed the business, which that's not how it's supposed to go. If you could help the franchise, I said to him, before you do that, let's make sure your franchisees are actually profitable. Let's make sure your franchisees are actually having fun, that are providing good customer service, that are fulfilled in what they're doing and effective in what they're doing, because they're going to be the best billboard for you to sell more franchises, you know?
Right. Exactly. And it's funny you say that. We um we have a very low gross. We do a 6% on gross royalties. And our franchise fees are, depending upon the market, 20 to 30,000. We don't You don't make any money off of the franchise. People are like, oh, you got XYZ money. And it's like, okay, well, 5 or 6 thousand went to the attorneys, you know, so and so went to, the broker that brought you here or whatever it is, and then it's like, I've got a few $1,000s to plan your whole marketing campaign. In fact, you're costing me money to open this business. So it's not, I'm not so super excited about this. It sometimes, and it is also painstakingly, like why? Because we see uh, franchise all over the place. It's like all these different restaurants, and it's like, $1 million to open, and it's like, wow, our franchise offices make really good money. Like they are, like I sometimes walk out, I'll go visit them across the country and go to the wedding shows or trade shows. And it's like, wow, your house is like 3 times my size. Like, you know, man, I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, and it's kind of like you've done really well in this business. And, it's a testament to, how hard they've worked, because they've conquered their market. They've gone out and they've done what they needed to do. So our business is, from a franchise or side, is not as healthy as the franchisees. I should say that, maybe. So we kind of are the opposite way around. Hopefully that won't always be, the case. But I'm very excited that all of our offices do well, and they take care of their families and they take care of their employees, and continue to work hard in each and every community that they're involved in.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of what Zig Ziglar used to say is that you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. It may take you a little bit more time, but then there's that success, and then there's fulfillment. And if
Mhm.
you're growing super fast, but it's hollow, and I'm not saying that that you have to choose. I think you can have both, and be highly successful and also have the fulfillment. And it's the steady growth of making sure that your franchisees are doing well, that is going to serve you well ultimately. And you got to feel good about and what I hear for you, it's like, I feel good about the way that I've built that you've built your business, right? That the two of you, you and Robert. And so that is more important, that you feel good about that and that you're able to invest it back in, that you're able to support. That's more important than, how many franchisees you have that might be unhappy. Like, franchise litigation is the number one in the country for a reason, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people buy franchises and don't get what they thought they paid for and are unhappy. And that's not the goal. So, this show is about leaders of transformation. It's like people that are creating transformation in some form in area of business or life. And that transformation, a lot of times there's such a microwave approach to it, thinking that it's just like, push the button and it comes out. But that's not been my experience. It's like the 20 years to overnight success kind of thing, right? It's like you invest, you sow those seeds, and you'll
Mm-hmm.
get a harvest, and it's going to be a lasting harvest, but it's got to be with the right values, coming back to that, the right values in there right up front, and
Yeah.
keep making sure that's the priority.
Yeah. And I think with every business, it's how much you're putting into it and how much you're going to sacrifice is what you're going to get. If with any business, if you just sit at home and have bought a franchise and you just sit at home and wait for the whatever leads to come in on the internet, you're not going to get very far. You have to get out and you have to represent your product. You have to be the face of your product. A lot of people, I go to the wedding shows and stuff like that, and I've got all these purple suits and gold shoes and purple shoes, and I'm always in that. And a lot of my franchisees, when they're like, man, it's just so hard to get, they're not stuck up. They're very social people, but like, oh, I just can't get that flashy. Like they're just not comfortable in it. And it's like, it's okay to, it's okay. Um, we each do things a little bit differently and we all operate a little bit differently. And this is where your comfort level is. But the most important thing is the fact that you're here, you're meeting with people, you're putting yourself out there, you're communicating, and there's value in doing more than just sitting and waiting for something to come. A lot of people that I talk to, they buy a franchise and they're like, oh, the franchise didn't do this or the franchise didn't do this. And it's like, okay, what did you do? Oh, well, I tried to advertise this way. And I'm like, okay, so you're advertising against the franchisor. Like, you do realize that you're just pitting each other's money against each other. Like, did you do something did you why did you advertise the same way the franchisor is advertising? You need to be advertising in a different, avenue. Did you go to your Chamber of Commerce meeting? Did you, did you join the local a board or volunteer? Did you make sure that you took your trailers out to a worthy cause? Did you participate? That's the thing. Did you participate in the community? How else is the name of your business being pushed out there? If you think you can just buy a billboard and stuff is just going to come to you, that's not how it works in small business.
Yeah.
You have to be committed and out there. And I think so many people now expect that if they do something or they pay for something, they don't have to do it. They don't have to do anything. It's just supposed to happen. It's like Amazon, it's like click a button and, my food comes here or my packages arrive. That's really the mentality that a lot of people take. And that's, when you're an entrepreneur, that's the wrong approach.
Yeah. Well, it's an employee mindset as well, because
Mm-hmm.
you're working 40 hours, you're getting paid 40 hours. As an entrepreneur, you might work 40 hours and get paid nothing. It may cost you, right? It's probably going to cost you, and so for a while, right? You work, get paid, work, get paid, work, and so, not to contradict what I was saying earlier, it's not that it's a grind, grinding out, striving and struggling and all that. I think there can be that grace. What I've learned is that, to your point about the marketing, is don't double, go double into one area and ignore another area. Is you got to diversify, you got to think clearly. And I noticed for myself is that in that striving is this like slowing down to speed up actually gives me time to think clearly. And I'm not just throwing stuff out there, that I'm actually thinking it through. To your point, like, did you go to the chamber? Did you go here? Are you invested in the community? Slow down to think about, where are you going to be able to have the greatest impact? Where can you get connected? Think in terms of the customer and stand in their shoes. Where are they hanging out? Who is your ideal customer? Where do they spend time? And what is valuable to them? What are their values? What's important to them? And where can you meet them where they're at? And so you actually do less, but it's more effective than
Absolutely.
running out there and throwing a whole bunch of mud against the wall and hustling day in, day out, when you're just like, you're not thinking it through. And that's, I think, where that grace and that quote unquote restfulness comes from. So yeah, good conversation.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the other thing is, it's like you said, you keep learning. So many people, that have been in the business for an extended period of time, 10, 20 years, a lot of them don't want to learn. They don't want to change the way that they've done things. And you have to constantly continue to look at things from a different perspective, a fresh perspective, and listen to what the market and the world is telling you. Just because you did something the way it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 2 years ago, is completely different today. And a lot of people don't want to change, or evolve. So constantly learning and being open to new ideas and accepting new terms are what keep you sharp and what keeps you ahead of your competition, and really continuing to be an entrepreneur. You're valuing, you're putting everything out there on the line. You're not trying to, hold on to everything. You're still being inventive, and uh, um, just that small business mindset of, I can achieve anything that I put my mind to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got to be growing, right? Because if you're not growing, you're dying. And to your point, I think about, like, there are principles in business that don't change. I've been in business personally, like myself, for over 30 years. There are principles that worked back then that still work today, but the methods change.
Mm-hmm.
The methods change. And so if I keep trying to do it the same way that I did it 30 years ago, it's not going to work today. I mean, I used to dial for dollars, and just pick up the phone. I used to go door to door. I wouldn't do that today, but then we didn't have email and internet and social media and all the other avenues, PR and all that accessibility to that we had back then. So it's evolving. So principles never change, but methods do. And we got to stay up on that. And also that creativity, like you're talking about, is also just being in that growth mode of learning and growing, because you're either growing or you're dying. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards, because everything else is moving and shifting. So if you're not changing, you're actually falling behind. So yeah, David, this has been a really good conversation, and I love the kind of direction that it went, just really going deep into the stuff that really matters to entrepreneurs. And I hope that people will be inspired by it, and and even just getting curious a little bit more about Royal Restrooms and your model and what you're up to, and maybe even inspiring them to step out and saying, I had an idea and I haven't done anything with it. Maybe I need to dust that off and do something with it. But yeah, thanks for being here and sharing your own journey and experience with us. It's been good.
Well, I appreciate you allowing me to be on here, and I'm sorry that we steered off course a little bit there.
Oh, it's
Uh,
great.
but I've very much enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I was going to ask about, a little bit more about Royal Restrooms and how it works and so forth. But you know what? All that stuff's on the website. This is the stuff. This is the gold that really matters, and the nuggets that are going to make a difference, truly, and make it, transformation happen. So we'll make sure your website, royalrestrooms.com. If anybody wants to find out more about it, rent one, buy a franchise. They can find out all the information on the site. And I always say, leaders of transformation, take action. Take action on something that you learn. If you're listening to this and you're going, okay, so how do I apply this to my own life? Maybe there is that idea that you want to dust off. Maybe it is reevaluating the priorities that you have, the busyness in, your life. I heard something yesterday. Somebody said busyness is false significance. It's a false perception of significance to think I'm so busy, but to realize, are you busy? Are you productive? Are you making an impact? And that's that can apply in business. That can also apply in your family, your relationships. So look at what's important. What's most important when you're on your deathbed and you're looking back on your life. What are you gonna what are you going to appreciate? What are you going to value most, and value that now, because this is that you're building that legacy today. And so I encourage you to do that. As I said, you can learn more about Royal Restrooms. You can learn more about their franchise, and even just like looking at from a business model, how they approach things. Maybe there's something, maybe you have a business and you need some fresh ideas on what you can do in your business, or maybe you're considering franchising. There's so much here when you unpack it in this story and the journey that David's been sharing with us. Is there's so much to unpack, so many lessons. And I encourage you to grab hold of something, at least one thing, and apply it, because that's where transformation happens, when you apply it in your own life. And so we'd love to hear your stories. You can go on leadersoftransformation.com. You can find us, of course, on social as well. We'd love to hear how this has impacted you, and what we can do to support you along your journey to becoming the leader of transformation that you're capable of being. I believe that every single person has the ability to create transformation. I believe that every single person actually has the ability to be an entrepreneur, as a mindset of an entrepreneur, which is a creative mindset to create value in the marketplace. And so if there's anything we can do to help support you in that, you can reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And again, of course, thank you for being here. We'd love to see you next week as well. We're going to have another guest on this show next week, and come join us. It'll be fun. So again, thanks for being here. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.